Most people assume that the heart of Russia beats exclusively in Moscow, amidst the red brick of the Kremlin and the frantic, unapologetic pace of a global metropolis. But what if I told you that the true soul of this vast country isn't found in its ancient capital, but in a swampy, frozen marshland closer to the Arctic Circle? What if I told you about a city that, by all laws of nature, shouldn't exist? A place willed into reality by one man's obsession, built on the bones of thousands, and designed to look like Europe, but feel distinctly, tragically Russian. This isn't just a travel destination. It is a psychological experiment in stone and water. We are talking about a place that has changed its name 3 times in a single century, struggling to decide if it is an imperial crown, a Soviet fortress, or a modern European gateway. This is a city where the sun refuses to set for weeks at a time, driving its inhabitants into a euphoric insomnia, and where the bridges rise at night, cutting you off from your home if you aren't careful. Forget what you think you know about Russia. Today, we are walking through the window to Europe to understand the beautiful, melancholic, and defiant contradiction that is St. Petersburg. To truly understand St. Petersburg, you first have to understand that it is, by all accounts, a geographical mistake. Unlike most ancient cities that grew organically near fertile land or trade crossroads, St. Petersburg was an act of defiance against nature itself. When Tsar Peter the Great looked at the Neva River Delta in 1703, he didn't see the mosquito-infested swampland that was actually there. He saw an empire. He saw a port that would force Russia out of its medieval isolation and drag it, kicking and screaming, into the Enlightenment of Europe. This context is vital because it explains everything you see today. The city is located in the far northwest of Russia, encompassing an area of roughly 400 square kilometers. It is the 4th most populous city in Europe, with around 6 million residents, trailing only Istanbul, Moscow, and London. But numbers don't capture the audacity of its location. It sits just south of Finland and a mere 2-hour drive from Estonia. It is so close to the border that for centuries, it has served as a cultural airlock, the place where Russian tradition meets Western innovation. This proximity gives the city a split personality, while Moscow, 12 million people strong and situated deep inland, feels like a fortress of traditional Russian power, distinct and insulated. Petersburg feels porous. It was designed to be the window to Europe, and that metaphor is literal. Residents here, armed with the right visas, treat Helsinki the way New Yorkers treat the Hamptons. It creates a lifestyle that bridges 2 worlds. You can have breakfast in Russia and lunch in the European Union. But this geography comes with a price. The city is built on islands and marshland, constantly battling the water that surrounds it. It is a city that requires constant maintenance, just to keep from sinking back into the bog from which it was raised. When you walk these streets, you aren't just walking on pavement, you are walking on a platform of human will suspended over the water. You will often hear St. Petersburg referred to as the Venice of the North. It's a romantic nickname, cited in every guidebook because of the city's 55 canals and nearly 500 bridges. But to compare it merely to Venice is to miss the sheer scale and power of the water here. Venice is gentle, the Neva River is not. The Neva, flowing from Lake Ladoga, not Loga as some erroneous maps might suggest, slices through the city with a deep, dark current before emptying into the Gulf of Finland. This river divides the city into islands, including notable ones like Vasilyevsky Island and the trendy New Holland, creating a fragmented urban landscape that is stitched together by iron and stone. However, the water defines life here in a way that is far more practical and sometimes frustrating than in Venice. The bridges of St. Petersburg are not just static monuments, they are active machines. During the navigation season, the massive bridges across the Neva open up at night to let commercial ships pass from the Volga, Baltic waterway out to sea. This is one of the most spectacular sights in the world. Seeing the palace bridge illuminated against the night sky, its wings lifting slowly to reveal the cathedral spire in the distance. But for the locals, this phenomenon is a logistical nightmare known as getting bridged. If you live on Vasilyevsky Island and you are partying in the city center, if you have a strict deadline, If you miss the last bridge closing time, usually around 100 or 200 a.m., you are stranded on the wrong side of the river until nearly dawn. It shapes the nightlife and the psychology of the city. It adds a thrill of urgency to every evening. It forces a choice: go home early like a responsible citizen, or stay out until 500 a.m. and embrace the sunrise. It is a city that dictates your schedule, reminding you that despite all the imperial granite, the water is still in charge. If the bridges dictate where you can go, the sun dictates how you feel. St. Petersburg is the world's largest northernmost metropolis. It sits so close to the Arctic Circle that from late May to mid-July, the city experiences the white nights. This isn't just about the sun setting late. It is a natural phenomenon where the sun dips just below the horizon but never truly leaves, bathing the city in a surreal, milky twilight for 19 hours a day. In standard tour descriptions, this is painted as a time of festivals and fun. And it is. The city explodes with energy. The gloom of the long, dark winter is forgotten. People walk along the embankments at 300 a.m., reading books without streetlights. But there is a deeper layer to this. The white nights induce a kind of collective mania. Dostoevsky wrote about this: the nervousness, the electric buzz in the air that makes sleep seem like a waste of time. It is a time when the boundaries between dreams and reality blur. The locals don't just celebrate, they survive on adrenaline. The peak of this season is the Scarlet Sails celebration. It is the most massive student graduation party on Earth, but it looks like a scene from a fantasy movie. A ship with blood, red sails glides down the Neva River amidst a pyrotechnic show that rivals the Olympics. It symbolizes hope and the transition into adulthood. While tourists see a light show, locals see a rite of passage. It is the one time of year when the famously reserved Russian demeanor cracks wide open, replaced by a sense of infinite possibility. However, we must also acknowledge the other side. For those sensitive to light, it is a period of chronic insomnia. Blackout curtains are not a luxury here, they are a medical necessity. The beauty of the white nights is undeniable, but it comes with a physical tax on the body. Architecturally, St. Petersburg is an illusionist. The main thoroughfare, Nevsky Prospect, and the surrounding embankments are lined with palaces in Baroque and neoclassical styles, painted in soft pastels of yellow, green, and the famous winter palace turquoise. The buildings are uniform in height. By decree of the Tsar, no private building could be taller than the Winter Palace, creating a harmonious skyline that rivals Paris or Vienna. The streets are impeccably clean, and the facades are maintained to project power and wealth. But if you are a true explorer, you must look behind the facade. St. Petersburg is famous for its courtyards, or wells. If you slip through the heavy iron gates and archways off the main streets, you enter a different world. Here, inside the block, the buildings are unpainted, the windows look into each other, and the sky is just a small patch of light far above. These claustrophobic, decaying, yet atmospherically rich spaces are where the real life happens. This is the St. Petersburg of Raskolnikov from Crime and Punishment. It is dark, gritty, and mysterious. This contrast extends to how people live. While you might see luxury cars cruising the avenues, a crucial social relic remains hidden in plain sight: the communalka. Even today, in the most expensive districts near the Hermitage, thousands of people live in communal apartments. These are remnants of the Soviet era, where large imperial flats were subdivided to house multiple families. You might have a lawyer, a student, and a grandmother sharing one kitchen and one bathroom, while living in a building that looks like a palace from the outside. This juxtaposition, extreme wealth parked on the street in a Bentley, while upstairs 5 families argue over whose turn it is to clean the stove, is the essential social friction of the city. You cannot walk these streets without feeling the weight of ghosts. The city has changed its name 3 times, and each name represents a different era of trauma and triumph. Founded as St. Petersburg, it became Petrograd during World War I to sound less German, then Leningrad after the death of Lenin, and finally St. Petersburg again in 1991. The most defining moment of this city's soul is not its founding by Peter the Great, but the siege of Leningrad during World War II. For roughly 900 days, Almost 2.5 years, the city was encircled by Nazi forces. It was cut off from the world. There was no heat, no water, and almost no food. While history books mention tragedies, we need to be specific to understand the resilience of these people. They ate wallpaper paste, leather belts, and bread made from sawdust to survive. Over 1 million civilians died, mostly of starvation. Yet, the city did not surrender. The road of life across the frozen Lake Ladoga was the only lifeline. This history explains the character of the Petersburg, the locals. There is a deep, ingrained respect for bread and food. There is a solemnity in their pride. When you visit the Piskaryovskoye Memorial Cemetery, where 500,000 victims lie in mass graves, you realize that the beauty of St. Petersburg is a mask for immense suffering. The city is a survivor. When you see an elderly person on the metro, you are looking at a generation that carries the memory of the blockade, or are the children of those who did. This is why the city feels different from Moscow. Moscow is about power and money. St. Petersburg is about memory and endurance. St. Petersburg is often called the cultural capital of Russia, but this title is more than just a marketing slogan for the Hermitage Museum. While the Hermitage is indeed one of the world's greatest treasure houses, so vast that if you spent 1 minute looking at each exhibit, it would take you 11 years to see everything. The culture here is in the atmosphere. This is the city of the intelligentsia. While Moscow runs the government and the banks, St. Petersburg writes the novels and paints the pictures. It is the home of Pushkin, Gogol, and Dostoevsky. There is a stereotype in Russia: if you want to make money, go to Moscow. If you want to find your soul, go to St. Petersburg. You feel this on the streets. There are bookstores everywhere. The subway riders are reading heavy literature, not just scrolling on phones. We must also talk about the religion of architecture here, specifically the metro. The St. Petersburg Metro is the deepest in the world by average depth, a necessity due to the swampy soil. But the stations are not mere transport hubs. They are palaces of the people. Built during the Stalinist era, they feature marble columns, crystal chandeliers, and mosaics. Avtovo station looks more like a ballroom than a subway stop. It was a Soviet propaganda tool designed to show the common worker that they owned the future, but today, it stands as a testament to a time when public infrastructure was treated as art. Let's talk about the reality of living in a museum. St. Petersburg is expensive. The demand from across Russia's 145 million people to live in this European-facing city drives real estate prices to levels that rival Moscow, yet salaries here are typically lower than in the capital. This creates a challenging dynamic. A young professional might earn $800 to $1,000 a month, while rent for a decent apartment eats up 60% of that. This economic pressure has pushed the population outward. The historic center is becoming a place for the wealthy elite and tourists, while the working class is pushed to satellite towns like Kudrovo or Marino. These are forests of massive, high-rise apartment blocks, human hives that stand in stark contrast to the low-rise elegance of the city center. However, there are equalizers in this society. One of them is food. You can dine in high-end restaurants serving caviar and vodka for hundreds of dollars, or you can visit a pesheknaya. These are legendary donut shops, unchanged since the Soviet Union. The most famous one, on Bolshaya Konyushanaya Street, serves pishki, hot greasy donuts covered in powdered sugar and coffee from a bucket. Here, you will see a businessman in an Italian suit, standing next to a struggling student, both eating the same cheap treat. It is a culinary institution that resists gentrification. Finally, we need to address the elephant in the room: the difficulty of visiting Russia due to geopolitics and visa restrictions. While most travelers face a bureaucratic nightmare to get a visa, St. Petersburg has a special status. There is a specific loophole that savvy travelers use. If you arrive by ferry from Helsinki or Tallinn on specific cruise lines, you are granted 72 hours of visa-free entry. You have to sleep on the ship or have a pre-booked hotel tour, but it allows you to bypass the embassies entirely. This makes St. Petersburg the only accessible part of Russia for many Westerners, reinforcing the city's role as the window. Not just for Russians looking out, but for the world looking in. St. Petersburg is a city of dualities. It is water and stone Europe and Asia, imperial glory and Soviet scars. It is a city that was built to look like Amsterdam, but feels like a Dostoevsky novel. To visit here is to walk a tightrope between the past and the present. You come for the Hermitage and the golden domes of St. Isaac's Cathedral, but you stay for the melancholy beauty of the rain on the Neva and the ghost of an empire that never quite vanished. It forces us to ask, can a city built on the sheer force of will ever truly be at peace with itself? Or is its beauty derived from that eternal struggle? What surprised you most about the hidden layers of this northern capital? Is it the insomnia of the White Knights, or the resilience of the siege survivors? Let me know in the comments below. And if this deep dive sparked a desire to understand the world beyond the postcards, share this with a fellow traveler who seeks the story behind the scenery. Until we meet again in another corner of the world.